Hello everybody, my name is FNaF Veggie Boy, and yeah, this is my first YouTube video, which is a compilation of videos I did on TikTok that I've been doing for quite a while, doing these 1-minute reviews, more so summaries of the stories of the Fazbear Frights books. And this is all of them so far. I'm not doing TikTok anymore, hence why I'm making this video now instead of waiting for the last books to come out and doing those videos and everything. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video as my first full-on introduction to YouTube. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this. It was a really fun journey for me for those books series, and I will do the last few books here on YouTube, but with more of a full-on one whole video feel to it. I'll still split up into the 3 books after I finish them, like I did for these, but yeah, that's mainly the difference for the next 3 books that are gonna be out. Well, it's 2 technically. The 3rd one isn't technically part of the series, but I'm still gonna be doing a video on that one. I'm not sure if I will be able to get it right away though, but anyways, I hope you enjoy this compilation of these story summaries I did. These were a lot of fun with all these really scary stories, and yeah, just enjoy. Fazbear Frights, Book 1, Story 1, Into the Pit. So this story is about a kid named Oswald who goes to a pizzeria during the summer, and he ends up going to this old ball pit that actually takes him back in time to an old Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria, where he runs into Spring Bonnie, who's like little kids and stuff, typical stuff. But then when he goes back to his normal time, the Spring Bonnie takes his dad and replaces with him, basically so that only Oswald can see this murderous rabbit, and he thinks he's going crazy. It's like such a good intense story, one I highly suggest, and a great way to start off the series. I mean, and each one does take a little while to get started, but that's what's good about them. It brings in more suspense. Really like this story. One I highly suggest. Fazbear Frights, Book 1, Story 2, To Be Beautiful. This one is about a girl named Sarah, who is unhappy with her physical appearance. She ends up finding basically Circus Baby, and Circus Baby promises to make her beautiful. And she does. Like slowly, part by part, her body becomes more beautiful and she has a better body. But what actually happens is that the Circus Baby is actually taking her body parts, and ends up replacing her. Yeah. All her organs and stuff are in bags, she finds them, and basically Sarah ends up slowly becoming just a pile of metal parts and stuff. It's such a creepy and even a bit of a sad story, but one that is really great and another good story. Highly suggest it. Really good. Fazbear Frights, Book 1, 3rd and final story, Count the Ways. This one is, honestly, I have to say, the best one out of all 3 of these. The story is about a girl named Millie who's very goth and talks about death and how she wants to die, but she really doesn't want to die. Kind of complex, but yeah. And after big events with a boy, she ends up crawling inside Fun Freddy, and basically he lists all the ways that she could die, and because he wants to help her do that. So yeah, it's basically about a girl who doesn't really want to die, but talks about death a lot, and ends up meeting her demise after all the different ways that she could die was listed. It's really good. Highly suggest it. Book 2, Story 1, Fetch. This one is about a kid named Greg who he and a bunch of friends break into a Freddy Fazbear's and finds this robot dog, Fetch. And it oddly enough connects to his phone. And whatever Greg wants Fetch to get for him, he'll do it. It starts out fine and calm at first with chocolate getting it from his mom somehow from a grocery store. But then it gets twisted with his uncle and his lucky ring. He gets the full-on finger with the ring on it. And then the ending up in the air, and the ending at the very end is very up in the air, which I love because it gives it a nice both goosebumps but also Twilight Zone feel, which I like how that's how the series is sort of heading. So it's sort of a mix of both Goosebumps and Twilight Zone, and I love that. It's such a good story. Really good. Book 2, Story 2, Lonely Freddy. This one is about a kid named Alec and his sister Hazel. Alec is seen as a bad kid, and Hazel is seen as the golden child. And they come up with a plan to sort of reverse roles, and because she's having a party at Freddy Fazbear's. And things go well for a while, but Alec thinks that she's going to double-cross him. But it turns out she wasn't. It's actually really sad. Like, you really feel bad for Alec, but you also feel bad for Hazel. It's really touching. And the ending is the saddest part, because he really ends up regretting what he does, but something happens to him. Go read it. It's good. Book 2, Story 3, Out of Stock. This one is about a kid named Oscar who really wants this toy of Plush Trap. And it's like a Plush Trap Chaser it's called. And he and his friends end up finding one, but there's some stuff that's wrong with it. They end up sort of stealing it, but they pay for it too at the same time, so it's odd like that. They get chased around, and it gets pretty creepy. It's one that I don't want to spoil anything about, like, because it's one that you should definitely read in order to get all the information yourself. This one would be very, very spoiler heavy if I did like the other ones, so go read it. It's really good. Really, really good. Book 3, Story 1, 1:35 a.m. This is one of the longest and creepiest stories in the series today. It's about this woman named Delilah that, she's had a rough life, lost a lot of people, and she needs a new alarm clock. So she gets this doll named Ella that works as an alarm clock. She tosses it out at first, after it doesn't work, and the doll keeps coming back to wake her up at 1:35 a.m. each morning. And even when she works the night shift, the doll still haunts her, yet no one sees the doll or hears anything. It's very creepy and very Twilight Zone-esque. And the ending's so sad. Read this book. Already, read this whole book. Trust me. Book 3, Story 2, Room for One More. This one is one of the freakiest stories out there yet. It's about this guy named Stanley, who ends up getting this new job at a factory. And every night he ends up seeing a doll that ends up asking him to come home with them. He ends up saying yes, but it always disappears. And slowly but surely, he ends up getting more sick and sick. Not corona sick, but different kind of sickness. Yeah, he ends up getting all swollen, his arms are getting all swollen and everything. It's really freaky. And the ending, I definitely will not spoil. But yeah, this story is one of the freakiest and one of the better stories I read. One of their is the top so far though, but still read it. It's good. Finally, book 3, story 3, The New Kid. This one is about two kids, Devin and Mick, who get a new friend, the new kid. Forget his name, but yeah. Devin's getting jealous of him, and basically, like, cause he did something to hurt him emotionally, he just basically wanted to spook him, but he accidentally ends up killing him in in Golden Freddy, basically, and it's just a really interesting story. Takes quite a while to get to the good parts, but still pretty solid story. I really highly suggest it. It is good. The whole book is good. Book 4, Story 1, Step Closer. This one, I wanted to spoil the least amount as possible, because this is one of the darkest, one of the creepiest, yet one of the saddest stories of the series. Basically, it's about this kid named Pete and his brother Chuck. They've been rough a little bit recently since the parents got divorced, and he tries to scare his little brother at Fazbear Pizza to no avail. But if you don't believe the darkness part, though, what I mean, the story starts out with him having a dream of Foxy poking his eye with his hook. Yeah, so there. It's good though. Book 4, Story 2, Dance With Me. This story isn't that creepy, but I still like it. Unlike Lonely Freddy, it still has good eeriness and the characters were good. That was my problem with Lonely Freddy, but I found the story to be still decent. Still not my favorite though, but this one is about a girl named Kelsey who's, because of her mom's boyfriend, got kicked out at a young age and it led to a life of crime. She ends up stealing this pair of glasses that she ends up being able to see Ballora dancing. Every time she puts it on, she gets closer. And she tries to make her life better. It's a really good and sweet story. I really like it. It's definitely worth a read. It's just good. And finally, Book 4, Story 3, Coming Home. This is honestly one of the saddest stories. It's about these sisters, Susie and Samantha. Susie ends up getting taken away and lured away by Chica and murdered. Her family basically tries to deal with it, and it's like such a sad story. Especially the ending. The ending really got to me. I was really happy I ended up finishing the story. It did take me a while to get what was happening with Susie's soul sort of being trapped in her own house and her sort of being able to interact with her family, but not really. It was kind of jumbled up, but still a really good story. I was happy I was able to finish it just now. Up next is the book Bunny Call. Can't wait. Book 5, Story 1, Bunny Call. Finally finished it. But this story is about a father named Bob who is forced by his family to go on this sort of camping trip to this place called Camp Eternia. And he is very unhappy at first. And as a bit of payback, he ends up setting up for a bunny call, which is basically something to wake people up at a certain time. It's this sort of robotic rabbit creature. It's actually honestly a really good story. The first half was a bit dull, but the second half really picked up, and the ending was such a twist. It really was an amazing story. glad I was able to finish it finally. Book 5, Story 2, In the Flesh. I've been dreading this one. This one is basically a MatPat and Prick story with Springtrap. That's all I really have to say. It is literally about this guy named Matt who ends up birthing a little mini Springtrap. It's freaking cursed. But it also plays itself super seriously, actually. But it goes through the motions sort of similar to the Jimmy Neutron episode where Carl got pregnant with an alien baby. But it was also having a bit more with relationship stuff in it, too. It was super cursed, but still a really good story, honestly. I hate it, but I love it. It's Split. Book 5, third and final story, The Man in Room 1280. This is one of the creepiest stories yet. It's basically about this pastor who is named Andrew and is tasked to help a patient in room 1280. This man is burned to a crisp, but is still alive. And he basically does whatever he can. He basically does whatever he can in order to help the man somehow. Whether it is healing him or whatever. It's such a dark but such an interesting story. I was in chills the whole time. It's a really good story and an amazing one to finish off the whole book. Read this book, it's good. Book 6, Story 1, Blackbird. This is a fascinating story. It's about this one character named Noel who was sort of a jerk in his past and was sort of a jerk again to his friend while they're starting to make a movie of sorts. And then his friend Sam is suddenly missing, seemingly dead. And Noel has to end up making amends with a girl he used to bully in junior high to make things right with Sam and the Blackbird, a character from a movie they're making that is seemingly coming to life. It is such a fascinating story and one of my top 10 favorites already. Really good. Book 6, Story 2, The Real Jake. This is one of the saddest but sweetest stories I have read so far out of this series. This one is one that doesn't have any horror at all, but that's what makes it so good. It's such a unique story out of all of the stories. Definitely one of my top 5 favorites. Such a good read, and it's so sad. Like, the story itself, everything in it is so very sad. And the ending, I find the ending, which I will spoil here, to be that it says, another notice that the cabinet door was wide open. I found it as Jake found the real Jake and then passed. Book 6, third and final story, Hide and Seek. This one is about a teen named Toby who is jealous of his brother's success at a lot of the games at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Games. A new one opens called Hide and Seek, where you have to find a Shadow Bonnie. But he tries it, he can't win, and even with cheating, he can't win, and he ends up breaking the game in rage. And after that, the Shadow Bonnie follows him in a way that sort of embodies the guilt that he feels for breaking it, and it gets worse and worse, and the story itself is so relatable, but it's also such a freaky story. It's honestly a great way to end off the book, and a good third story of a book. Fazbear Frights, Book 7, Story 1, The Cliffs. In this one, now single father, Robert, is taking care of his 2-year-old son and Tyler and gets him a Follow Me Freddy toy. He ends up, and after a while, Tyler ends up going missing. The bear keeps on taunting Robert, saying, "Why didn't you go to the cliffs? Why didn't you go to the cliffs?" Basically, the cliffs are a popular spot known for people who jump off to end their lives. And yeah, it's basically he's being taunted by the bear to possibly die. It's really dark, but a really great story. Yes, I'm at a different location to spice up my videos. Book 7, Story 2, The Breaking Wheel. This is one of the most horrifying stories I've read yet. Basically, the main character, Reed, ends up putting a bully, Julius, in basically a modern form of a medieval torture device known as the Breaking Wheel. And one of the other main character's little brothers, other character's name is Pickle. His little brother keeps controlling a little robot that had interference with Julius's device, which was an exoskeleton, and Reed keeps fearing that it could be flashing Julius around, and it had, and Julius is basically a bloody tentacle corpse that attaches himself to Reed, and when Ori and everyone else comes home, Ori keeps controlling it, and both die. Yeah, horrifying. Book 7, third and final story, He Told Me Everything. This one is basically about a student named Chris who is finally getting to high school and is getting to a science class he really wanted to get into. And he ends up going to this lock-in for the science class, and they do an experiment with this stuff called Fazgoo. And basically, the Fazgoo experiment takes over his body and basically creates a second version of him to take his place. And at the very end, after all the information of Chris is sent to the goo thing, the goo creature, the goo version, says to the teacher, "He told me everything." It's really creepy. Book 8, Story 1, Gumdrop Angel. This one is one of my favorites so far. My top 3, to be exact. This one is about a girl named Angel who is really jealous of her stepsister being really spoiled and everything. And she gets super upset that she can get to a special college because her mother recently married her stepfather and she can't get a student loan and her father won't pay for it, even though he spent a lot of money on her stepsister just for her birthday. And Angel, in revenge, ends up stealing a gumdrop nose from for the Fazbears, and she turns into the Gumdrop Angel and gets eaten. It's so horrifying yet good. Book 8, Story 2, Sergio's Lucky Day. This is basically about Sergio, who's in a loveless relationship with his current girlfriend, and he is very much so has a bad job, doing 10 times the work for basically $1,000 extra pay a month, which basically he ends up finding a little good luck charm doll designed after Balloon Boy named Lucky Boy, and it at first gives him really good advice, dumping his current girlfriend and quitting his current job, but it turns to more and more worse advice, deforming himself for a school reunion, and it gets very gross at that point, which all in all makes this story very compelling and very good, to be honest. Book 8, Story 2, Sergio's Lucky Day. This story is about, well, Sergio, and he finds this little good luck charm sort of doll of Balloon Boy that he calls Lucky Boy. And at first, it seems to give him really good luck. But then the doll just sort of starts to give him bad advice, and it basically ends up ruining his life and his body. It is a really creepy story, and one of my favorites so far. It's definitely a good one to do. And yeah, that's it, really. There's one more story before I'm done with book 8, and that'd be the series for now until book 9 comes out next month. So yeah. One more story left. Book 9, Story 1, The Puppet Carver. This one's basically about a man named Jack who owns a failing pizzeria restaurant, and one of his employees, Porter, ends up making a machine called the Puppet Carver, and it's inspired by a story that a coworker, Sage, is writing as a story within a story, so that's pretty neat. And basically, Jack has a near-death experience going into the device, and he ends up becoming nicer afterwards because he was a complete ass before, making up for all his past mistakes. And the interesting thing is the title both refers to the story within a story that you do see in the story, so it's cool. That's cool. And it's also referring to the device, the Puppet Carver. So, all in all, good story. Fazbear Frights, Book 9, Story 2, Jump for Tickets. This one's basically about a kid named Colton who is sick and tired of a game called the Ticket Pulverizer, spitting out more tickets for little kids than for bigger kids like him. And he wants to fix it so that it ends up spitting out more tickets. And he tries in different ways, both times sneaking to Freddy's, but the second time when he ends up going under the machine to try and tamper with it, and he ends up being trapped in the machine underneath the platform where kids jump on it by a giant robotic clown creature. And he ends up basically getting squished alive by kids in the end. It's dark, but yet another great tale in this series. Go read it. Book 9, third and final story, Pizza Kit. This one is basically about a girl named Peyton and her best friend Marley. And Marley gets into an accident when they are taking a field trip to a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Kit factory with their home ec class. Marley is seemingly dead and cooked into the pizza that Peyton is given. And her guilt literally eats at her. And it's such a dark story. There are multiple scenes that make my stomach churn. By the end of it, I literally felt like I was about to throw up, but in the best way possible. And the ending, I will not spoil the ending, but it is so dark. I love this story. Absolutely love it.